Hey there everyone, welcome to another update. So it's been a while since the last one, and there's a natural reason for that. As I mentioned, I was going to start a new chemotherapy. I was going to start taking pills, so I am basically self-medicating at home at the moment. Versus before, I would go down to the cancer center and then intravenously get chemo through the port in my chest. Now, I must say that I much prefer the chemo pills, because it kind of gives me the control. Now, I take it every morning, but if I'm a little late out of bed one morning, an hour here and there, doesn't really matter that much. Whereas when you have an appointment, you kind of need to be there, regardless of how you feel. So there's less commitment in that sense. So I do prefer it. Now, that's not to say that this treatment has been without its problems, because all of them are. So I thought that in this update, in this episode, or whatever you'd call it, I would be talking more directly, more honestly, more truthfully about having cancer, but also living through it. The mentality that it takes, the mentality that I have, and hopefully be able to give some advice to potentially new patients who's going through this, who has a completely new experience and possibly a very fearful experience, because having cancer is not fun, especially not when you have cancer in multiple organs like I do. So I thought that I would go through, some of the side effects, some of the pros and cons. There's not that many pros. But to kind of, shed some light on a subject that might be taboo to some people out there. So, that being said, as I mentioned, the transition between the two chemo treatments did not go very well, as none of them have. There has been problems every time that I've changed chemo medication, and this was no exception to that rule. So, when I first started on the pills, I had some severe abdominal cramps, and it has a very natural reason as to why, because I was internally bleeding. We got the results from the CT scan, I forgot to mention that, but I had a suspicion, and my suspicion proved to be correct, and that is that I have gotten more tumors in the rectum and in the colon. And I was kind of prepared for that because, as I said, I got abdominal pains down here, and I found it more difficult to use the restroom. And I was bleeding substantially more than what I have been doing. Now, ever since I got the diagnosis, I have been bleeding rectally, and it's been every single day. Some days it's been more than others. So one of the things that I've had to learn to deal with is you know, how to deal with bleeding, abdominal cramps, and all the good stuff that comes with that. So I just want to say that I have gotten, you know, I've always had a deep respect for women and the troubles that they go through, especially in our society today. And one of the things that, you know, it's one thing to battle male privilege and male chauvinistic pigs. That's one thing. That's something that as a society I hope that one day we'll get rid of. And, you know, women won't have to deal with that anymore. But it's true the other way around, it's just not to the same extent. But one of the things that I've always had the deepest respect for is when women go through their periods. Because it's something that we as men never really go through. I mean, we've cut ourselves, we've bled, we've had stomach ache, we've had, you know, things that we like to compare to this and be like, it can't be that bad, you know. It's just bleeding, it's just a couple of drops. You know, just take some Tylenol or what have you for the stomach ache and you'll be fine. And I am here to tell you that no, you do not. You might not bleed much, but let me tell you that you feel every single drop, and it messes with your mind to the point where, you know, you don't want to go outside because you're afraid that you're gonna literally crap your pants. And I mean, we've all seen those pictures online of, you know, flies gathering in the crotch area and then the text like, never trust a fart. Well, let me tell you, when you're bleeding rectally or when you have a period, you cannot trust a fart. You have no idea what's going to come out. And that is extremely detrimental to your mental health. Because you really don't want to do anything. It's fine as long as you're sitting or laying down for a little bit, and then it starts to ache up and you have to move. But as soon as you take just a few steps, it's like the world is going to explode. And you just gotta pray that there's a restroom close by. So, as a man going through that, as I said, I feel like women have kind of the upper hand here. A woman who goes through rectal or colon cancer with rectal bleeding is probably more prepared to deal with, you know, the stomach cramps, the bleeding, and so on, just because they deal with it every single month. But for a guy, it's one of these things where, as a guy, you just have to suck up your pride. Pride and cancer do not go along well. And, you know, if you're one of these macho men who, you know, don't like to talk about having pain in your butt because it sounds gay or what have you, you know, if you're that kind of guy, maybe cancer, you know, especially rectal cancer, maybe that's not for you. But for the rest of us, we just have to deal with it, and we have to overcome that, which means that in the beginning, I actually bought myself these, you know, because that's what they're designed to do. They're supposed to soak up blood and prevent your clothes from getting soiled. So I bought the highest absorbency that I could find, because unlike women, it's not always just a few drops. Sometimes, especially in the beginning, it could be like a waterfall. So I needed something that would actually catch all of that. And this is what I mean, that you just gotta suck it up. If you are bleeding and you want to go somewhere, put one of these in your boxers and go about your day. That being said, I have even more respect for the ladies after wearing pads, because the commercials are not correct. It does not disappear. It does not feel like you're not having anything in your pants, because you do. You absolutely do. It feels like it basically feels like you have crapped your pants. It feels like there's a big bulge right in the butt area, and everyone can see it, and everyone is laughing behind your back. That's what it feels like. But it doesn't. It does actually blend in, so it becomes invisible. Which, I mean, duh. The women have used it all this time, and it's not like we guys are pointing every time they have a pad on. Because it does disappear when you're viewing it from the outside, but it does not disappear. The feeling does not disappear. You know you got one on. So I had been using that for a while, but it was always a little worrisome, because it's basically just a little pad, and it has a sticky surface or background, so it kind of sticks to your underpants. But even so, I found it so hard to, trust that it wouldn't slide out of position. And especially for us guys who wear boxers, unlike a pantyhose or underwear, like female underwear, that kind of sticks to your body and follows the contours of your body, a boxer does not. So, even though you drag the boxers up as far as they will go, they kind of fall down a little bit, and now you got an air pocket. And so I was always worried that, what if the pad gets misaligned? Because then it'll be ineffective. So, again, you just gotta bite the sour apple, as we say in Norway. And I went out and I bought these. So those are male diapers, basically. And I basically, I'm not wearing these every single day, but it's one of those things that if you're unsure how your day is going to go and you have places to be, get one of these. You're not going to go around feeling sexy wearing one of them, but it takes all the stress away from your brain, where you're thinking that, am I going to have an accident? All of these things. And also, as I said, I'll try to be as honest, I'll try to talk as straight as possible, and that also means using gross terms and images and so on, because there is no sugarcoating it. It is gross, and you have to get over that when you're dealing with this. But what I was going to say is that the blood that gets expelled from your butt stinks to high heaven, Because if you think about it, it has dead tumor cells in it. So there's already dead tissue. And you have no idea how long that dead tissue has been trapped in your colon before it finally came out. So, you know, it's... not a very fun experience. But one of the good things about those adult diapers is that they do have some scent hiding abilities. Because they are supposed to deal with both pee and poo. So it does help tremendously if you have an accident while wearing one of those. Way more than it does if you don't. And I have had more experiences that I care for where I've been out and about and I've just had just like the tiniest fart, but it's been enough that blood has come out, and it's, you know, because it's liquid, gone straight through my boxer and straight through my shorts or pants or whatever I have on. And there is nothing worse than being in a public place or being far away from home, knowing that you have a really foul-smelling spot right in your crack of your pants. And while you just want to get home so you can change and, you know, take a shower and all of that stuff, you have to first get home, which means you have to sit in a car seat. And if you don't have anything with you, then you're gonna bleed on the seat. So, you know, one of the things that I would say is keep a couple of plastic bags in the glove compartment, because worst case scenario, you can either poke some holes for your legs and pull one of those on while you're driving home, or just lay it on the seat and sit on it so that you're not destroying the seats of your car, because that's going to be an expensive repair. So, you know, it's one of those things that you might not feel very manly or, you know, macho or whatever, but it doesn't matter. You know, if you have to wear, you know, if you have to borrow some menstruation pads from your girlfriend or sister or whatever you have, or you have to buy your own, or you need to go out and get adult diapers, or you need to keep plastic bags on you at all times just in case, just do it. You know, just... the alternative is so much worse. Trust me. And so, you know, this was a little detour, but I felt like I needed to touch on that because especially the rectal bleeding is one of those things that, you know, I don't care if you're a guy or a girl, it's not something that's pleasant to talk about, but it is something that we do need to talk about because it's going to be occupying your day-to-day life. And, you know, you just got to deal with it. But what I was actually about to say is when I changed the treatments and started using the chemo pills, I had side effects. And as I said, I had a lot more bleeding, a lot more abdominal cramps, And the chemo kind of made it worse, especially the cramps. Not so much the bleeding, although I am on blood thinners, which definitely doesn't help. But as for the abdominal cramps, it got so bad that I was basically constantly moving, because sitting still amplified that kind of, I wouldn't say awkwardness, but it just, like, it twisted my stomach just by standing still or lying down. And so if I was trying to lay in bed, my legs would constantly like move like this, and I would kind of like be in a foster position, just pumping. And or if I was walking, standing, I would be like this. I would constantly be doing something just so that my stomach would not be idle. And so I got some medication from the doctor to deal with that, especially the sleeping, because the only thing that worked for me, and I still have to use that today, was to fill up the bathtub with hot water. And I am talking as hot as you could get it. Which in our house is 110 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 45 degrees Celsius. That's the water that I was bathing in, or soaking in. And I would sit there, and it would relax my stomach, it would relax my leg muscles, because of course my legs cramped up as well, because I was constantly moving them and constantly flexing them. So, and my butt got more sore because I was constantly having to go to the restroom. So I had extremely sore abdominal area, I had sore butt cheeks, I had sore rectum, and I had sore thighs. And as I said, the only thing that worked was to soak myself in a bathtub for hours and hours and hours on end. Like, I would literally, and this is not exaggerated at all, I would pour hot water in the bathtub like 10 times a day. Now, even like 6 or 7 times a night, keeping my wife up and, just making a whole mess, but there was nothing else I could do because I was in so much pain, so much discomfort, that I had to do what I had to do. And luckily we're on a farm, so we have a well, so we're not paying for that water, because that water bill would have been ginormous. And I have an electrical heater, one of those waterless heaters. So, it keeps the water at a nice temperature, and, it never runs out of hot water, basically. But it does mean that the electrical bill gets high. So, that's fun. But anyways, I got medication from the doctor to deal with that kind of insomnia. So I got some pain medication for, all the discomfort, the cramps and everything like that. And then I got some sleeping pills to take before I went to bed. Well, unfortunately, the pain medication had absolutely no effect. I might as well have just drank some water. I didn't feel any difference whatsoever, even hours afterwards. It was exactly the same feeling. It didn't go from an 8 to a 7 or a 7.5. It didn't go anywhere. It didn't increase. It didn't, lessen. It just stayed a solid 8 or 9, or whatever you had at the moment. And then I tried the sleep medication, and the first night I don't remember much. In fact, I don't remember anything at all. But I do know that at some point I pour water in the bathtub, and I must have soaked, because there was water in the bathtub when I woke up. Because that's one of the things that I do is, when I run the hot water, it creates a lot of noise in the house. And it's going to wake my wife up. There's, no getting around that. The same for when I let the water out. So if I don't let the water out, at least I just woke her once. Is the, hope and dream. But yeah, there was water in the tub that wasn't there the morning. The night before. And there was a wet towel on the floor. So I know that I definitely soaked myself, but I have no memory of it. But what's even more concerning is that I woke up on my side with my dog here, Benji, our little 3-legged dog, spooning next to me right here on by my chest. And then next to him again was my dirty laundry hamper full of dirty laundry. So I must have taken that with me from the bathroom, put it in my bed. Like, that's the most normal thing that you can do, and fallen asleep. I don't remember any of that. And what's scary about that is that, it's not rational behavior. Which means that, I could have done so much more worse things, like, I don't know, putting the stove on, or, putting something on the stove and starting a fire that way, or, decided that I needed to go to, I don't know, McDonald's, or do some shopping and get in a car in the middle of the night. So that was kind of scary. So I called them and spoke with their office, and what they said was to try to half the dose next night. So instead of 10 milligrams, do just 5 and see how that worked. Well, if you have me added on Twitter, which is a new toy that I'm trying out now before Elon Musk destroys it completely, then you already know how that night went, because it did not go much better. I posted a picture when I was starting to feel like, hey ho, the medication is definitely kicking in right now. I took a selfie and I posted it, and I think my words was, it's starting to go into effect because I can see the back of my heads. And it was just one of those where everything was spinning. And then a short while later, coming out from the restroom, I had, like hallucinations, and like my head was just all over the place. I couldn't open my eyes, even though it felt like my eyes were open. It was like you know. And I decided to document what I was thinking at the time. So again, I posted that on Twitter because I have my phone right there, and it's just easier to click Twitter than to go through my apps and find a notepad or something like that. And I wrote down the most acid tripping story that I have ever read. And I'm glad that I did, because the next morning I had completely forgotten all about those two things until I checked my Twitter feed and was like, oh, well, I guess I was doing that yesterday. So, and then those memories kind of came flooding back. And I remember that everything made so much sense to me at the time. Like the crazy story, seeing the back of my head, it felt normal, but at the same time not. So again, I was having huge delusions, hallucinations, and I was just a mess. I had no control over, what my brain was gonna do. So this was, of course, over the weekend. So I had called them on Friday, and that's when they told me to half the dose for, Saturday night. Or Friday night leading into Saturday. So they would be closed on Saturday and Sunday. So I decided to just stop with that medication, because they told me to call them back on Monday and let them know how it was. And so those last 2 nights I didn't sleep at all. I was just like cramping and feeling uncomfortable and going in and out of the bathtub. And I lost several pounds over the weekend just because I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I was constantly moving, so I was burning calories. It was not a fun weekend. And so I spoke with them again on Monday, and my wife had the realization that maybe it's not a sleep aid that I need. Maybe it's a different painkillers, because as I said, the previous painkillers didn't do anything. I would take them, but it was just like status quo. So I told them about that, because that had slipped my mind the first time. And so they prescribed a new pain medication that I would take every 6 hours as needed. And that worked. So I've had one night where I slept the entire night through. One. But for the most part, I am able to get a few hours before I either have to go in the bathtub or walk around a little bit or do something else before I can then go back to bed and get a couple of hours more. So a different set of painkillers was the answer to the dilemma here. And I still have abdominal cramps, it's just not as debilitating. So I am popping those pills every chance that I get on those 6 hours intervals, because that's the only thing so far that has actually worked. Now, another thing that I wanted to touch upon is the chemo that I'm currently on is Stivarga. Before that, it was oxaliplatin, and oxaliplatin is basically the strongest chemo around, like the general purpose, non-specific chemo. Stivarga is another all-purpose, non-specific, but it's not as strong as the oxaliplatin, which means that I'm, I don't think that this will be the answer that we're looking for, but the oxys stopped working altogether. I could have just as well just taken sugar pills. Actually, sugar pills probably have been worse since it would have fed the tumors, but at the end the oxaliplatin just had zero effect whatsoever. So it made no sense to continue that treatment, continue all of those side effects, and continue to putting that stuff into my body when ultimately it would be the same as doing nothing. So at least the Stivarga is different, so it'll give the tumor something new to combat. But as I said, it's not going to be as strong. But one of the things that I wanted to touch about with Stivarga is that it has some seriously annoying side effects. All the chemos that I've had so far has given me like dry fingers and dry toes. But the Stivarga takes that to a whole new level. When I first started out with it, like my entire skin from head to toe felt like it was either sunburned or that I had ants eating it. Because it was like this tingling, non-stop tingling everywhere, and that was also one of the reasons why I was constantly moving and completely unable to get some sleep, because I think most of us have had a really severe sunburn, and it is really difficult to sleep with a really bad sunburn. Especially if you have one that surrounds your body. Like if it's in your back, you lay on your stomach. If it's on your stomach, you lay on your back. But with this, there was no, I couldn't lay sideways, I couldn't lay on my stomach, I couldn't lay on my back, because everything hurt, everything burned, everything itched at the same rate, regardless. And my legs, my inner thighs, my forearms here, my fingers, my toes, even my face, and to some degree, like the neck to upper body transition, like right here, became super dry and flaky. And this isn't the first time that that's happened. As I said, all the chemos have had the same kind of stuff. I mean, like right now you can kind of see, let's see, if you look at my hands here, they kind of look like old people hands, because there's all of these folds and nooks and crannies. But no matter what I used, I was not able to put any moisture back into my skin. And of course, I know the soaking in the bathtub dries you out even more. But I would be, as I said, it was the only thing that comforted me. And so I really didn't care if it would dry me out more, because the bathtub was basically where I was napping. I would take like a half an hour, 45 minute, maybe an hour nap in the bathtub, and then, you know, soak again and maybe doze off again. It was the only place where I was able to get some sleep. And because I've been exposed to having really dry skin before, like, this was nothing new. And I work on a farm, so we've always had this, the O'Keeffe's Working Hands, which is one of the best brands for dry skin. It basically had no effect. So then I went out and I got this, Eucerin. And this is extremely wet. Well, I can actually show you. So, I'll take my ring off there. So if you take just a little bit like that, and we put it on, you'll see that it doesn't really soak into the skin as much as it just kind of coats it. So this is really, really good, because I mean, you can be here and you can rub till the cows come home, and it's still going to be moisturized. That didn't have an effect. So I went to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy gave me this, Aquapore, which is basically, like if you see here, it's basically like almost petroleum jelly. And kind of smells like it too. But I would use that stuff for like my inner thighs, and it worked. I mean, I wouldn't say that it cured it, but it was better than the other two. But still, it didn't really help, especially on my hands, because whenever I would do something around the farm, or my hands would just keep blistering up. I would get these sores next to the fingernails, same with the toes. And then I got a phone call from the pharmacy that issued the Stivarga pills, wanting to do a little kind of like a patient touch-up, see how I was getting along, and when do I need my refills, all of these things. And they went through some of the side effects, and they mentioned the dry skin, and I was like, oh yeah, I've noticed this is the worst that I have ever experienced with any kind of chemo. Nothing that I use works on it. And the lady that I was talking to actually gave, advised me to try this, which is Udderly Smooth Extra Care 20 with 20% urea. So that stuff. And it's just a tiny, tiny little thing. But oh my word. This is absolutely amazing. So if you're suffering from dry skin, or if you're on chemo, get the Utterly Smooth. It goes on so well, and it soaks in immediately, and it makes your hands feel soft and comfy, and it kind of fixes those cracks almost instantaneously. It's the best product that I have ever used. So buy yourself one of those. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. So otherwise, I don't think... Well, there's one thing we should probably touch on. And that is that even if you don't have colorectal cancer, it is something that is happening more and more. It's becoming more and more prevalent. A few years ago, they suggested that men should get themselves tested for colorectal cancer at the age of 50, I believe. Yes, 50. And then just a short while ago, like a year, maybe 2 years ago, something like that, they changed that and said that all men who are 45 or older should get themselves checked out for colorectal cancer. So they chipped off 5 years because they saw that more and more young people are getting these cancers in the colon and the rectal area, or stomach cancer. So basically like the whole feeding tube, if you like, from throat to, stomach to colon to rectal. So they had noticed a huge increase in younger and younger people getting these diseases. But here's the thing, I'm not 45 yet. And to be honest, I would be surprised if I make it to 45, to be absolutely honest with you. I would be surprised if I make it to my next birthday. That doesn't mean that I've given up. I'm just thinking about it realistically. That, every step along the way of my treatment, it's just gotten worse. Like every milestone, it's gotten worse. So, realistically, all that we're doing is we're just buying me whatever time I have. But get yourself checked, because it's not a big deal. Yes, it involves a colonoscopy. Yes, that means that you'll have to lie down on a bench while someone inserts a medical instrument up your butt. And yes, it is not a comfortable experience. Luckily, for the colonoscopy part, they tend to use their knockout juice, as they call it, or knockout milk, which is a white liquid that they inject into you, and it just knocks you out completely. I believe maybe it was the stuff that Michael Jackson used to sleep, but it's, they know what they're doing. But a colonoscopy gives you so many answers to questions that you didn't even know that you had. Yeah, you might walk a little funny the rest of the day, but it's a small price to pay. Because especially when it comes to colorectal cancer, 100% of colorectal cancer that are caught early on are treatable. There is 0 chance of you dying, and 100% chance that they'll be able to get rid of the cancer. So, the faster you get yourself checked, the better. Now, one thing I would say that is actually a good indicator that maybe you should check yourself. Now, this isn't written in stone. This is not, this is not a 100%, oh my god, you have cancer if you have this. But if your farts smell really bad, people are commenting on it, maybe you're even commenting on it, there is a big chance that you have either colon or rectal or both cancers. Because that smell would be explained by those dead tumor cells, that dead tissue, and just like rotten, flesh, which is basically what it is. It stinks to high heaven. So, that old saying like, did something crawl up there and die? Possibly. Didn't crawl up, but something might have died in there. And just for that reason alone, I would get a colonoscopy. You might not have cancer, but maybe you'll find out why this is such a problem. And maybe there's an easy, quick solution to that issue, and so you don't have to feel self-conscious about your own farts. Another thing is that if dogs seem to be extremely fascinated with your butt and not with anyone else's, because dogs can smell tumors, and they can definitely smell the dead tissue. So if dogs show very much interest in smelling your butt, you might want to get that checked out. Because, best case scenario, there's nothing. And now you know. You can wait a year or two until next time you want to do another check. Because even if you develop cancer the following day after you got a colonoscopy, so immediately afterwards the results come back, you're cancer free, there's nothing to worry about, but the day after, immediately you got some sort of cancer, well, it's going to start slow. And so by the time that, if you do this like a yearly process, by next year when you have your next colonoscopy, it'll be a stage 1. And, at least most likely, unless it's a super, super, super aggressive one. But I feel like you would probably have some side effects if that was the case, and you might want to go in and check yourself earlier. Yeah. But if there's one thing that you can take away from this video, I hope that it is that, leave your prideful thinking at the, just throw it out of the house. Because it doesn't work well with cancers. I'm at the point right now where if I go into a doctor's office and the doctors ask me to drop my pants, I'll drop my pants. If I have to do a CT scan and there's a nurse there and she's like, oh, because of the CT scan we're going to do today, you have to completely remove your pants because of the metal. Normally when it's just here, you can just, put your pants on your ankles and be fine. It doesn't matter. I'll strip down, I'll do whatever it needs, I'll do whatever it takes. When first I had my radiation Christmas last year, I needed to get some tattoos done because they basically tattoo my butt with 3 little dots. And those are so that they can align the lasers so that they know that they have the correct trajectory to have the radiation meet at the specific point inside of my body where it's going to do the most good, where it's going to burn the tumor. But they need to tattoo little dots because those will be permanent, they won't move. And so time and time and time again, they can use those to kind of, set up their equipment and zero it. And, this was a nurse. And, she, of course, was more, I guess, aware of it than I was, that, this might be awkward for me, that here's this woman and I need to drop my pants and, lay butt up on a pillow. But the thing is that these people see everything, they hear everything. It's nothing new to them. They're not going to take photos of it and send to their grandchildren, or, post on their bulletin boards at the hospital. For them it's a job, and for me and the other patients, it's our life. If I can better the outcome of a treatment by having a doctor have a feel around, or put a camera up there, then by all means, you do what you need to do in order to get the best overall understanding of what you have in front of you, how to best cure this disease. And as a patient, it's just one of those things, like dropping your pants and just, poking your butt in the air shouldn't feel less awkward or more awkward than having a doctor look in your ear canal. In fact, I'm at the point right now where I feel like having a doctor look at my ear canal is more like scary, because I might not have cleaned my ears that day. So it's, do what's best for your body, put all of your pride aside. There is no such thing as a female pad. As far as I'm concerned, that thing is unisex. The whole purpose of it is to collect blood, and it does an amazing job at that. And you have to suck it up. You have to deal with it. And I'm not saying that, it's going to be easy. But your mentality, the way that you think about it, the quicker you're able to normalize what you need to do, the easier and better it'll be for you. So, that being said, I just want to thank you all so much again for your continued support. Donations have been coming in, gifts have been coming in, and the love that has come in, I say it again and again and again, but it is absolutely amazing. In many ways, getting cancer, somehow feels like the best thing that's ever happened, because I've had so many people tell me how much I mean to them that I never knew before. And that's a very strong feeling. So, again, I'm gonna post some links down below as to where you can get a hold of me. If you want to send me something, there's a P.O. box there. And, you know, my GoFundMe is there. I have my PayPal there. And my Twitter is there. I must say that I'm still new to Twitter, but I feel like I'm trying to put something out every single day. Either from the farm or from, you know, gaming to working on putting up listings on eBay to just day-to-day stuff. And it might not be the most interesting, as I'm sure there are a lot more people out there with much more interesting lives than what I have. But I do try to keep it a little bit fun, a little bit, you know, off the cuff. There's a video that I posted 2 days ago, I believe. Sorry. There's a video I posted 2 days ago, which just cracks me up every time I watch it. It's basically, while I was having stomach cramps, while my butt was sore, while all of my muscles in my thigh were sore, I decided to take a different road home. Because it would be a shortcut. It would cut off like 15 minutes of driving. And, you know, I kind of wanted to get home quickly because I wasn't feeling too good. Well, before I knew it, I was kind of trapped on an old gravel road full of potholes. And I basically had two options. I could turn around and drive all the way back, adding additional time to my travel, or I could bite my teeth together and try to get through that little patch. Because it was basically, it was like, I want to say 500 meters total. So, you know, give or take 500 yards. So I felt like I should be able to handle this. And so I pushed through, and after about a minute I realized that this was the worst decision that I have ever made. I got my phone out and I put it on my dash just to kind of document it. And boy, oh boy. If you haven't seen the video, please enjoy so on my expense. And until next time, I hope that you're well. I hope everyone in your family is well. And I hope you have a wonderful Christmas season. So, take care. Love you.